As both a legendary solo artist and a member of the rock group Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks has lived hard and fast in her 5-decade career, for better or for worse. And it's fair to say things haven't always been easy. Here are the tragic details about Stevie Nicks. Stephanie Lynn Nicks was born in Phoenix in 1948 to Jess, a corporate executive, and Barbara, a homemaker. Nicks' grandpa, Aaron Nicks, was an aspiring country music singer who taught her to sing at the age of 4, built a guitar for her, and began taking her with him to local music gigs. Following a successful tap dance performance in the 6th grade, Nicks decided she wanted to be a performer. Then, while attending high school, she met a boy, a high school classmate and fellow musician named Lindsey Buckingham, who was playing at a party Nicks went to in 1966. On a whim, Nicks began singing as Buckingham played. The two didn't see each other again for 2 years, until one day, Buckingham called out of the blue and asked Nicks to join his band. The group was called Fritz, and Nicks was a welcome addition. She also fell in love with Buckingham, and the duo remained together as Fritz and opened for a number of iconic musicians, including Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and Santana, before breaking up in 1971. Nicks and Buckingham, however, remained together and formed their own band, Buckingham Nicks. Within 2 years, Buckingham Nicks was signed by Polydor Records. Their debut, self-titled album came out in 1973 and went largely unnoticed by both critics and the public, except for one thing. On the album cover, the couple appeared nude from the waist up, a daring move that had never been done before. But this decision by Buckingham Nicks didn't fall into place all that easily. According to Gold Dust Woman, a biography of Nicks, Nicks demurred when asked to take off her blouse, and the abusive Buckingham threw a fit, insisting that the cover was art and lambasting Nicks for acting like a child. Nicks gave in and later hid the album, refusing to show it to her father. Unfortunately, Buckingham Nicks didn't work out all that well. Following the virtual failure of the album, the couple began to struggle financially. Buckingham continued working on his music, but Nicks worked at a variety of jobs to keep the couple afloat, including as a dental assistant, maid, and waitress. In 1994, Nicks told the Island Ear, "I worked at the Copper Penny, Clementine's, and Bob's Big Boy. I supported Lindsey and I for years." In 1975, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham finally got their due. They were asked to join Fleetwood Mac. Mick Fleetwood called the couple on New Year's Eve and asked them to dinner, but they were already working on their second album, and Buckingham wasn't too excited about the idea of joining another band. Nicks was unsure as well, since Christine McVie was already playing with Fleetwood Mac alongside her husband, John. Nicks later told Rolling Stone, "At the beginning, people said, 'Does Christine want another girl in the band?' And I said, 'I hope she does. When she meets me, I hope she likes me.'" McVie did indeed like Stevie Nicks, and both Nicks and Buckingham joined Fleetwood Mac almost immediately.
We had dinner, and when we left, everybody just sort of hugged each other and said, well, rehearsal is next week at 7 o'clock, and it was done.
Together, the ladies made a pact, said Nicks, to never be treated like second-class citizens. Nicks later recalled that they agreed, "We will never be not allowed to hang out in a room full of intelligent, crazy rock and roll stars, because we're just as crazy and just as intelligent as they are." Luckily, things worked out, and the band was thrilled with Stevie Nicks' songs. 2 of them, Rhiannon and Landslide, appeared on Fleetwood Mac's first album with Buckingham and Nicks, making the Billboard 200 list in 1976 with 3 hits in the top 20. As Fleetwood Mac skyrocketed to fame, however, the band members themselves weren't doing so hot. Nicks had long been frustrated about the old days, in which she worked as a waitress while Buckingham turned down $500 gigs at steakhouses. Naturally, she hoped for a better relationship with Fleetwood Mac, so she insisted to Buckingham that they had to repair their relationship and put their problems behind them. Things weren't helped, however, by the fact that Nicks began having an ill-fated affair with Mick Fleetwood. She and Buckingham broke up. Elsewhere in the band, the McVies were going through their own troubles after Christine had an affair with a lighting director in 1976. Despite the fragmented nature of the band in the late 70s, however, it was during this era that they put out arguably their greatest album ever, Rumors. Notably, a significant number of songs from Rumors can be seen as obvious preludes to the band members' impending romantic breakups, including Buckingham's Secondhand News and Never Going Back Again, and Christine McVie's You Make Loving Fun, which was written about her affair. So, as Rumors took off to become #1 on Billboard and won a Grammy for Album of the Year, the players themselves were falling apart. Stevie Nicks' newfound romantic freedom led to a number of relationships beginning in the late 70s. She first romanced the Eagles frontman, Don Henley. Nicks' 1981 debut solo album, Belladonna, featured Henley on one of the tracks, the ever-romantic Leather and Lace. But although it was rumored that Henley wanted to marry Nicks, the couple eventually broke up. A decade or so later, in 1992, Nicks told Vox magazine that she had once been pregnant by Henley, one of 4 times total she had become pregnant in her life. Nicks decided to terminate her pregnancies. She explained, "To give up 4 babies is to give up a lot that would be here now. So that bothers me a lot and really breaks my heart." In 2009, Nicks elaborated further to the West Australian, "I chose purposely, my choice, to not be married or have children so I could follow being a true artist." Although the members of Fleetwood Mac did split up romantically, everybody made a concerted effort to keep the band together. Unfortunately, the band's busy schedule had another unfortunate side effect. Touring night after night quickly took its toll on Stevie Nicks' vocal cords. A July 1977 concert review by New York Times writer John Rockwell revealed Nicks had nodes on her vocal cords. Not only was her voice hoarse, but her mid-range notes were shredded to the point that a few of the band's upcoming concerts were subsequently canceled. The sound of Nicks' voice on stage was also costing the band in the way of bad reviews. Stevie Nicks publicly addressed her issues in August 1977. She told the public that a doctor had informed her that her speaking voice was destroying her singing voice, having aggravated the nodules in her vocal cords. Nicks then recuperated by refraining from talking as Fleetwood Mac took a break from their world tour. At the time, she said, "I just have to do the best I can do." But Rockwell had noticed something else in Fleetwood Mac's concert performance, too. He wrote, "Nicks pushed her lackadaisical loopiness too far. She managed to come in on cue and to remember her words, but at her worst, she looked like a glamorous female equivalent of Joe Cocker, and in general, her slack meanderings were more a cause for concern than for fascination." What Rockwell did not say outright was that Nicks, at this point, was overindulging in drugs and alcohol. Stevie Nicks spent most of the early 1980s as high as a kite. She tried to quit her cocaine habit as early as 1982, but slipped while filming the music video for Gypsy.
It was the first thing I thought of when I woke up in the morning, and the last thing I thought of before I went to bed.
She also began chain-smoking cigarettes, and in 1986, discovered that her cocaine usage had literally burned a hole in the septum of her nose. Nicks' parents and friends finally intervened in the late 1980s. Nicks' close friend, Tom Petty, later told Rolling Stone, "I was very worried about her. If the phone did ring and they said Stevie died, I wouldn't have been surprised." Nicks checked into the Betty Ford Clinic in 1986. 3 songs came from the experience. Welcome to the Room, Sarah, and When I See You Again appeared on Fleetwood Mac's Tango in the Night album in 1987. And I'm Doing the Best I Can appeared on Nicks' own The Other Side of the Mirror album in 1989. By then, however, the singer had been prescribed Klonopin by her psychiatrist and was now addicted to that drug. She entered rehab a final time in 1993. In 1998, Nicks told People magazine that she remembered very clearly that day in 1986 when her plastic surgeon told her that if she wanted her nose to remain on her face, she had to stop using cocaine. Another told her one more snort could cause a brain hemorrhage, but her stints in rehab subsequently caused the petite singer's weight to go up to 175 pounds. At the end of her 1994 tour, Nicks decided, in her own words, "I would never sing in front of people again. Singing is the love of my life, but I was ready to give it all up because I couldn't handle people talking about how fat I was." Unfortunately, Stevie Nicks' weight became the talk of the music world, and it has been suggested that it had an effect on her success in the music industry, with album sales taking a particular hit. This side effect wasn't lost on Nicks herself, who vowed not to go on stage ever again if she didn't lose that weight. In the end, she embarked on a high-protein, low-carb diet in 1995 and ended up shedding 30 pounds. In 1990, Fleetwood Mac produced their first real flop, Behind the Mask. That September, Nicks left the band to pursue her solo career full-time. Her departure has since been attributed to an argument with Mick Fleetwood, who refused to allow Nicks to use her own song, Silver Springs, on a solo project called Time Space. Upon leaving the band, Nicks compiled some of her other hits for Time Space instead, which was relatively well received. A successful tour followed during 1991 and 1992. Nicks did reunite with Fleetwood Mac briefly in the early 90s. Presidential nominee Bill Clinton decided to use the band's hit song Don't Stop for his successful campaign, but both Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham stayed on just long enough to perform a single concert at Clinton's inaugural ball in January 1993 before resuming their solo acts. But Nicks never really wanted a solo career. She told Rolling Stone in 2011, "I always wanted to be just in a band, but I just had so many songs." So it was probably inevitable that Nicks would eventually rejoin Fleetwood Mac. It happened in 1997 for their next album, The Dance. To this day, although she still has her solo gig running, Nicks is a member of Fleetwood Mac. She may have endured a tumultuous personal life, but Stevie Nicks' professional career is littered with accolades and accomplishments. Since 1977, Nicks has earned 2 Grammys with Fleetwood Mac, has been nominated for a Grammy 14 times, and has 2 recordings in the Grammy Hall of Fame. Since 1981, Belladonna has sold more than 5 million copies in the US alone. That same year, Rolling Stone named the singer the reigning queen of rock and roll, as well as one of the 100 greatest singers of all time. 3 more of Nicks' albums have gone platinum over the years, and between her own and those she made with Fleetwood Mac, Nicks has sold over 140 million records. In 2019, Nicks made history. She was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the 2nd time, making her the first woman in music history to have achieved such an honor. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.